My biggest differentiator as a sales communication speaker is everything I do is practical and based on real life. I talk no theory, and sales teams can listen, take away key points and literally implement the new strategies the following day and get instant results. So I would say that's my number one differentiator. And I think the second, to add to that layer, is I actually demonstrate what I teach. So one of my keynotes, the perfect sales call, as well as teaching 5 strategies to conduct a perfect call, I actually make live calls on stage. So the delegates will bring with me 2 or 3 prospects to call. Once I understand their business really clearly, I will phone live on a loudspeaker through their AV system and demonstrate exactly what I teach. One of the best ways to improve conversion is about social proof. So an absolute key is to get testimonials from every client. A lot of people would call these case studies. I refer to them as success stories. And to adapt to different learning styles, I'd recommend a written, but a video as well. And with written, I'd get permission to use the client's picture with their name and business name, because then it's more believable. But a video testimonial is really key. So every time you're dealing with an inquiry or doing a prospecting call, your follow-up email should have a relevant testimonial in that email. And the line I like to use to link it could be either "don't take our word for it," testimonial, or "when we talk about how great we are, it sounds like we're showing off. When our clients do, it's proof." So I think, so that's the one thing, is really back it up. The second thing to increase conversion is about the questions you're asking. I'll give you a good example. So at the beginning, when you get a new lead, a lot of people would ask, "How do you hear about us?" Which is okay, it gets the source of an inquiry. My tip is, who recommended you to my company? So you're still getting the source, but you're giving the right perception. So really think hard about what information you want to ascertain on a phone call or in a meeting, and break down what are the best questions to get that information, because most salespeople don't do that. They run on autopilot, and often they're asking the wrong question but expecting the right result. So for me, they're my 2 biggest tips to increase conversion rates. My clients tell me the biggest takeaways they get from my talk are, one, about actual real strategies to make a cold call. And I would never refer to it as a cold call, I refer to it as a smart call, as in you're well prepared and research, but I give them a framework to actually wrap their own style around, but a framework they can use as a call structure. That's the first takeaway. The second is I give them ideas of how to develop what I call my killer questions. One of my books I'm writing at the moment is called Ask Better Questions, Get Better Results. And I just often find salespeople ask really poor questions, but expect the right outcome. So I give them ways to think about it differently, to ask really intelligent, or what I call killer questions, which often will lead to better results. And I think that the final takeaway is all about conversion, and it's about understanding your numbers. And a concept I teach is about reverse engineering. And what I mean by that is salespeople will actually start to understand the value of every activity they do. So if they know their numbers and their commission, not base, but they're remunerated with commission as well as a salary, they'll start to know what they earn per meeting, per presentation, even per phone call, which drives their motivation to that next level. Yes, yeah, so for employers to help their sales team achieve more success, it's all about really understanding what drives them. Most sales managers or leaders I speak with, I'll ask them 2 key questions. One, what really drives your sales team or individual? But number 2, something they never ask, is what demotivates them, what brings them down. And without knowing what drives them and what brings them down, we can never get the best out of them. So I think as a leader and a manager, to really assist, help, support your sales team, you need to know, one, what they are really working towards, but what things get them into a negative mindset that you can then help them get out of or shift. So I think that's the first really big tip. Diving deeper into that, when we know what they're aiming towards, help them get that goal. You know, if it's a dream, they're not motivated. If it's a goal with a deadline and they know what steps they need to take to get to that dream outcome, then as a leader, if you can help them have clarity on what is the necessary process, they're more likely to be driven to get that outcome. So this is a question I get asked so often, is has the sales world changed? The answer is yes and no. So sales skills fundamentally haven't actually changed. They are completely transferable. One of my favorite books, Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People, the points Carnegie made are still absolutely relevant today. So I would argue with anyone that whatever product, service, solution you sell, there will be some fundamental skills that can be transferred to different roles. However, the other key point is, how has sales changed? I would say it hasn't. How buyers buy, that's changed. I think now more than ever, with instant access on social media, buyers are much more prepared, researched than they've ever been. And that the stats that people talk about is when a buyer actually speaks to a salesperson, they're already 58% down that buying journey. So knowing that, a salesperson needs to be very aware of what knowledge that potential prospect has, and equally, because they don't want to patronize them, but also they might need to challenge some of their learnings to make sure that the buyer is thinking the right way. But I think that the sale hasn't changed, it's the buying process that's actually changed. And as a sales professional, if we know how our buyers want to be sold to, it's much easier to sell to them. So I've got a podcast called Confessions of a Serial Seller, and I've interviewed the top 100 salespeople in the world. These are self-made multi-millionaires through sales. And when I listen back to the interviews and I identify, I codify what are the common traits, there's three things I see. One, they do the basics brilliantly. And that doesn't sound very sexy, but it's true. They do the basics brilliantly. They are boringly consistent. But the third is they ask really intelligent questions and they listen really well. And the key point with the listening is they don't listen to respond, they listen to learn. Great sales performers don't miss a trick. I call it their opportunity antenna, and it is always switched on. They are always thinking, how else can I best serve my clients? Because they understand their job isn't to sell, it's to serve, and they are always focused on their prospects or clients' biggest challenges and how can they make their life easier and solve their problems, because they know their job is to add value, to serve and to help, as opposed to sell. Yeah, so the opposite of successful salespeople, if we look at average or poor performers, does come down really to three key points. One is they don't listen. Pareto's law, the 80-20, is so relevant in sales. We want the prospect or customer speaking a lot more than we do. Most average performers do the 80-20 the wrong way round. They have 5 mouths, 1 ear. So that the first challenge is they don't listen properly, or they are listening to respond when it's their go to speak. The second thing is the questions they ask. They often aren't very well prepared, so because they're running on autopilot, they're asking the same bad questions on most calls, meetings or presentations, and then they're sort of surprised why they're not getting the great responses that they can use to their advantage. And I think the third and final one is, and it sounds really obvious, but they're not doing the basics. They're not getting back to a prospect when they say. Their follow-up might be 3 or 4 times and they quit early because either they have too many leads or they don't know how to organize or prioritize effectively. They turn up to a meeting ill-prepared. They are selling on LinkedIn immediately. They connect with someone and pitch, and I call that commission breath. And they're just doing the things that average performers do, which is blag, try and do as little as possible to get the right outcome. And the truth is in sales, and it's always been the case, is the most successful are the people that do the highest productivity. Those who are doing the most calls have more practice and they're used to the responses they get because they do more of them, and it's no surprise the highest productivity gets the best results.